Kia ora.
Sara.
So, welcome to this interview. Obviously, you're part of the NZAPH and you have been a hypnotherapist and you also train as a hypnotherapist. I'm curious about what got you into being a hypnotherapist to begin with.
That's a story that's as long as the piece of string that you want to unravel. um, and I guess, when you look back at things, you can join those dots going all the way back. We kind of talked about that when I was talking to you the other day. And when you do look back, you kind of see earlier times, and earlier times are all kind of connected. So I have some really very early stories where I, as a very young child, remember using my imagination very vividly, sometimes getting in trouble for that, sometimes being at school and being told not to stare out the window and not to be a daydreamer, and that I wouldn't achieve much if I carried on daydreaming, which makes me laugh because that's my job now, is really daydreaming. And I was really, really interested in hypnotherapy, self-hypnosis, and I guess in my early 20s, I was very interested in the spiritual side of hypnosis, of past life regression, of connecting to something bigger than myself, and all of those kind of ideas. I read some books from the library. I did a really interesting past life regression script with a friend of mine, but it was kind of dabbling and playing and seeing what happened. And yeah, really interesting things occurred from those first dabblings, and it just made me think there's something more to this. This is really interesting. I kind of became aware of how I could calm my body as well, being in my early 20s on the other side of the world. I wouldn't say I suffered from anxiety as such, but I did have very anxious moments at times, being that far from my family. And there was a time where, when we first arrived here kind of to live, that my grandmother passed away in the UK. She had a stroke and then passed away. And there was a time where I felt quite kind of far from her and from family. And using self-hypnosis to help myself get into a much more relaxed state and kind of become more at peace with being far away from her, and her passing was I guess the first way that I used it for myself in a therapeutic way. And then I think I just forgot about hypnotherapy for about 20 years. I've used it in the background, but it wasn't a big thing in my life. I worked in HR and advertising and all sorts of different jobs, and then had my children, and that was when I kind of rebirthed hypnotherapy, I guess, in my life, because I did a beautiful hypnobirthing program with my first son, and that was magic. It was one of the best things I've ever done, choosing to experience birth in a positive way, in a natural, this is my body doing what it was designed to do way. Go with the flow of it and experience it and be in the moment of my body doing this amazing thing was so powerful. And so that brought it back into my life a little bit. Did hypnobirthing with both my children, but then the big pull back into hypnotherapy is calling me to do more with it was when Jake, my son, was diagnosed with leukemia. He was 6 at the time that we had that diagnosis, and which, it's a horrible diagnosis to have for anybody, but for a 6-year-old, it's, and us, it was pretty horrific. I supported him through all the things he had to do, all the chemotherapy. A lot of it was IV stuff, but he ended up with this aversion to taking pills, taking medication. And it became the bane of our life. It was just these few months where, first of all, he was at the beginning, he was taking pills fine, and it was wonderful. And he was like, yes, I'm, you know, the big 6-year-old that can do it and nobody else can do it. And then he had an incident where he vomited, and that was it. I was like, nope, I'm not doing it anymore. Subconscious mind put up a huge big wall and said, nope, nothing to do with that anymore. That was horrible. We're not doing that anymore. And so we had to go from pills to liquid form. Liquid form tastes disgusting. So then you end up kind of trying to water it down in milkshakes and things like that. And I remember one day sitting there and him having this big, big milkshake, which was green. And it was mint flavored. He decided that was the color of the day. And I've got a photo of him taking it because he had the most miserable look. I don't know why I took the photo, but every now and again I see it. It pops up in my memories and things. But he's got this straw in his mouth and this pained look on his face of this tiny little sip of like, and then he puts it down and then he brings it out and he takes another tiny sip. And it was just so frustrating watching him do that. And of course, by the end of that, it's time for the next one. So we got to the end of the tether and I said, right, what can we do? And light bulb moment, I'm going to take him to a hypnotherapist. And so that's what we did. I took him to a lovely lady in Christchurch called Marion. And we went for one session. That's all we went for. One session. And he was in with her for about half an hour, 40 minutes. He came out and said, I can do it. And I went, what do you mean you can do it? And he said, well, I can take my pills now. And I just looked at him and thought, it can't happen that quickly, surely. Surely we need to come for a few more sessions. So he said, I'll show you. And so we'd been up until this point practicing with sprinkles and M&Ms and Tic Tacs and all of these things. And he couldn't do any of them, couldn't even do a sprinkle. Like couldn't even put a sprinkle on his tongue and swallow it with water. And so I was kind of very dubious that this had actually worked. So I said, we'll try it with a sprinkle first because, you know, see if that goes down. And he was like, no, I want to do it with the proper thing. I was like, well, how about an M&M? Do that. Anyway, eventually he did. He said, I'm going to do it with a pill. I had the pills in my bag. I said, here you go. It was time to do it anyway. So awesome. And got my bottle of water out of my bag. I said, here you go. And he went, see, told you. And I just went, wow, that blew my mind. How did he go from this such a strong aversion that he would sit there for hours with a milkshake to this completely, it was like you'd taken my child in and a different child had come out. I was like, I need to learn how to do that.
You know, the scope of hypnotherapy, and wow, what a relief it must have been as parents to see that. And I can understand how it pivoted you towards the career path that you now are in and share with others. The scope, you know, we're talking about, you know, helping people through childbirth and helping people deal with grief and anxiety and obviously phobic stuff. So that, you know, the scope is huge, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I think every single person in the world could benefit from hypnotherapy. There is nobody that wouldn't benefit from having a session of hypnotherapy, because whatever little change you want to make in your life, hypnotherapy can help you do that, can support you to do that, can make it easier to do that. Whether it's, you know, I've had a lady today who wanted to stop drinking Coca-Cola. It might seem like a little thing to lots of people, but for her, it's really, really pivotal. It's, you know, her power. It's becoming in control of what she does and what she chooses to do. It's setting an example for her child. There's so many different reasons why people want to change. But yeah, you're right. The scope is everything and everyone.
When you look at the highlight of your career so far, what comes to mind? What is one of the most amazing things that you've seen?
Oh, that's a tricky question. There's so many. My favorite client, who I still see, she comes back regularly now, came to me when she was in a very, very depressed place. She was also seeing a psychologist, and I had a conversation with her psychologist about coming to do hypnotherapy to support her in her depression. She also had very strong anxiety, and I had thought about committing suicide on a number of occasions. So I don't say that lightly, because it's really important that we're working in with a whole team when we're working with someone who is in that place, but very gently and with relaxation to start with, and introducing a feeling of calm, reconnecting to joy and hope, and all of those things that she had experienced back in her life but needed to kind of reinstall. She's got to the place now where she is thriving. She's a writer. She's just about to publish her first novel. She is an artist. She's doing beautiful art. And now I not only see her, but I see her sister and her children and her sister's children. And so going from that place of despair and there's no point, to this lovely life that she's leading now, which is full of joy and fun and adventure. I feel very blessed to have had her as one of my clients.
Nice. I think it sometimes amazes people at how far they come when they enter into this sort of work. I mean, as a client, how quickly and how incredibly different they feel at the end of that journey. And a lot of times people, they just think, oh, this is my luck, this is how I am, and so on. But I think hypnotherapy really does say, hey, we can reprogram that program. We don't have to be in that unresourceful state. That hypnosis can tune into that subconscious part of us and assist that subconscious in a really magical way.
Yeah.
To create great transformation. And I think people, they think, oh yeah, I'm going to be depressed all my life, and I suffer from depression, or I've got this clinical disorder, and actually they're not their disorder.
No.
Yeah.
And it's that labels, and often in hypnosis I'll have them virtually peel off the label that they've stuck on themselves, because it is just a label. And depression or anxiety, these are all things that are our mind and body telling us something. They've all got a message to give us, that we're missing out on something, or we need to relook at our lives, or rejig how we do things. And if we listen to the message, then the messenger tends to become much quieter.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I think often the labels that we put on are not that helpful, because often it is just a natural thing that's just got out of balance, and is just it's a good thing that our mind and body are telling us something. We just need to listen.
Yeah. Now, whereabouts are you based for people that might be tuning into this, and how might they find you?
So I am based in Christchurch, and I work via in person. You can come into my clinic, or you can work with me over Zoom. I got quite used to working over Zoom during the pandemic, so I'm quite happy to work that way. And I was quite dubious in the beginning about how effective it would be, but I found it's actually just as effective, if not more so sometimes, because people are comfortable in their own space. The only issue I've ever had is I did have a lady who dropped off to sleep at the end of her session, and that's the only worry I have, is making sure that we're kind of keeping them in that space that's in trance but not asleep.
Yeah, it can happen from time to time.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, So, when we're thinking about what you would like to share out to the world about, I guess, the message of hope or something that you would like to share that you think would be good for them to understand, what would that message be?
I think it's a really simple message, but it's a profound message because I think so many people don't understand how their mind really works. And the message is to focus on what you want. Nearly all my clients who come to see me are focusing on what they don't want. They focus on the fact that they can't get any sleep. They focus on the fact that they are feeling anxious. They focus on wanting to stop smoking, or they focus on wanting to give up drinking Coca-Cola instead of moving that focus into a future view of what do they want, where do they want to go. And I often invite them to, pick up a paintbrush in their mind and paint what they would like their life to be like. And that can be metaphorical. It can be, it doesn't have to be a picture as such, but just adding in the components of what would make my life the most joyful to be in.
Nice message. Well, thank you, Sara, for taking some time out to, share your story. And obviously you've been through quite a lot. And I'm just, in awe actually, because as a parent to go through that with a son and come out the other side, it is horrific for anyone. And the strange thing is what a gift it brought, not only that he's well and he was able to take the medicine, but it sparked something in you, and you are now out there doing some really amazing work.
Yeah.
So you never do know what something will bring.
No, you don't. And I think, a few, maybe it was 2 years after I trained and I was seeing people, and I remember Jake at some point, and he was still quite young, he turned around to me and said, "You're a hypnotherapist because of me." And I said, "Yeah, you're right. Thank you."
Oh,
So,
lovely.
yeah.
On that note, thank you very much for your time, and it's been a
Oh,
pleasure to you today.
thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.